I always thought I'd keep quiet forever. That I'd smile through the comments, nod through the lectures, and swallow every word that made me feel small. But that night at dinner, something inside me finally broke, not in rage, but in clarity. And when my mother said what she said, I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. Growing up, our family dinners were performances. Everyone had a role. My father sat at the head of the table, my mother to his right, and I learned early that harmony meant silence. Don't correct them. Don't defend yourself. Don't make waves. For years, I played along, believing that keeping the peace was the same as keeping my family. But peace built on erasure isn't peace at all, it's just delayed honesty. That Sunday evening, I was 31 years old, sitting in the same dining room where I'd learned to disappear, and I realized I'd been rehearsing my whole life for a moment I was no longer willing to perform. The table was set beautifully, as always. The lighting was warm. Everything looked perfect on the surface, just like it always had. The evening started like any other: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans cooked the way my mother always made them. My father asked about work, and I told him about the promotion I'd been offered. He nodded, chewing thoughtfully, then said, "Well, don't let it go to your head. You've always been a little too confident for your own good." He smiled when he said it, like it was a joke. My mother laughed lightly. I forced a smile and changed the subject. That's how it always went. Little digs wrapped in humor. Advice that felt like criticism. Concern that sounded like control. They never yelled. They never had to. The words were surgical, delivered with a smile, and I'd spent decades convincing myself it was normal, that all families were like this, that love and criticism were inseparable. My mother asked about my apartment. The one I'd just moved into alone after ending a relationship. "It must be lonely," she said, passing the potatoes. "Living by yourself at your age. Most of your cousins are married now, you know." "I like it," I said quietly. "It's peaceful." "Peaceful," my father repeated, as if tasting the word. "That's one way to put it. Your mother and I just worry you're closing yourself off. You've always been a little withdrawn, hard to get close to." I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the instinct to apologize, to reassure them, to make myself smaller so they'd feel better. But I didn't say anything. I just kept eating. "We're only saying this because we care," my mother added. "You know how you can be sensitive, a little defensive. We just want you to be happy. And honestly, we're not sure you know how to let people in." There it was. The template, the concern that wasn't a concern, the love that felt like judgment. I gripped my fork a little tighter and told myself to breathe. Just get through dinner. Just keep the peace. The conversation drifted to other family members, but the tension remained. My mother mentioned my brother's recent vacation with his wife. How happy they looked in their photos. My father talked about a coworker's daughter who'd just bought a house with her fiancé. Every story felt like a comparison, a subtle reminder of what I wasn't accomplishing, what I wasn't becoming. I tried to participate, to seem engaged, but I could feel myself retreating inward. It was a survival mechanism I'd perfected over the years, present in body, absent in spirit. Just smile. Just nod. Just wait for it to be over. But then my mother leaned forward, her voice softening in that way that always preceded the sharpest cuts. "You know, sweetheart, I was talking to Linda from the book club, and she said her daughter just got engaged. And I thought about you, and I just felt sad." She paused, her eyes searching mine. "Because I don't think you'll ever really let anyone love you. You're too afraid, too damaged from that last relationship, and maybe that's just who you are now." The room went silent. My father glanced at my mother, then back at his plate. The word damaged hung in the air like smoke. I felt it settle over me, heavy and familiar, and for a moment, I almost let it. I almost nodded and apologized and promised to try harder, to be better, to be someone they could be proud of. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the weight of 31 years of swallowing words. Maybe it was the sudden, sharp clarity that I would never be enough for them because enough wasn't a real target, it was a moving shadow I'd been chasing my entire life. Or maybe it was just exhaustion, the bone-deep tiredness of pretending their words didn't hurt. I set down my fork and looked at my mother. My voice, when it came, was calm, steady. "I need you to hear me right now. What you just said, calling me damaged, that crossed a line." My mother blinked, surprised. "I didn't mean it like that. I'm just being honest. You've always been so sensitive." "No," I said, the word quiet but firm. "I'm not being sensitive. I'm telling you that what you said was hurtful and inappropriate. You don't get to label me as damaged and then hide behind concern." My father shifted in his seat. "Your mother's just trying to help. She wants what's best for you." If this is help, I don't want it, I said. And if wanting what's best for me means making me feel broken every time I sit at this table, then we have very different definitions of love. My mother's face tightened. I can't believe you're making such a big deal out of this. We've always been able to talk openly in this family. Now suddenly we have to walk on eggshells around you. There's a difference between open conversation and public humiliation, I said. You didn't ask how I was feeling or if I needed support. You told me I was damaged. You decided who I am without ever actually listening to me. We do listen, my father said, his tone defensive now. But you have to admit, you make it difficult sometimes. You're always so closed off. I felt the old urge to apologize rising in my throat, but I swallowed it down. I'm closed off because I learned that being open meant being critiqued. I stopped sharing because every time I did, it became a referendum on everything I was doing wrong. My mother looked away, her jaw tight. So now we're the villains. After everything we've done for you. I'm not saying you're villains, I said. I'm saying this pattern has to stop. I love you both, but I can't keep pretending this is okay. I can't keep sitting here and letting you tear me down in the name of family. The silence that followed was different from the silences I was used to. It wasn't passive. It wasn't me disappearing. It was space I'd created by refusing to collapse. My mother stood abruptly, gathering plates with sharp, deliberate movements. Fine. If that's how you feel, maybe it's best if we just keep things surface level from now on. I stood too, my legs steadier than I expected. Maybe it is, I said quietly, until we can talk to each other with actual respect. I didn't storm out. I didn't slam doors or deliver a final cutting remark. I simply picked up my coat, thanked them for dinner out of habit, and walked to my car. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, but beneath the trembling was something else, something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. The quiet, powerful relief of finally telling the truth. In the weeks that followed, my parents and I didn't speak much. There were a few terse text messages, surface-level check-ins that felt hollow but manageable. I didn't push for reconciliation, nor did I apologize. For the first time, I wasn't trying to fix what they broke. I went to therapy. I talked to friends who validated what I'd experienced. I started journaling about all the moments I'd silenced myself, and the pages filled faster than I expected. Each memory was proof that this hadn't been one bad night. It had been a lifetime of small erasures that added up to someone I barely recognized. My apartment, the one my mother had called lonely, became a sanctuary. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. I cooked meals I enjoyed. I sat in silence without someone filling it with criticism. And, slowly, I began to remember who I was before I learned to apologize for existing. I realized that silence had never protected me. It had only taught them they could say anything without consequence. And speaking up hadn't destroyed my family. It had simply revealed what was already broken, allowing him to stop pretending otherwise. Some boundaries don't bring people closer, but they do bring clarity. And sometimes, clarity is the most loving thing you can offer both to others and to yourself. I learned that night that I could survive my parents' disappointment. What I couldn't survive was my own disappearance. And I will never, ever make myself small for someone else's comfort again.